love our opening
I
music.
do too. I love that we get to dance. This is the most exercise. No, I'm just, that would be so pathetic. Hi, everybody. Welcome to If These Walls Could Talk. I'm Wendy Stuart.
And I'm Tym Moss.
And we are so happy to have you all here with us today.
Yes.
Tim, how has your week been?
My week was unusually slow, believe it or not.
What?
I mean, I think the biggest thing was I went to the urologist.
Oh
that
my
was,
God.
Honey, that was the most action I've seen in a while, too.
How did that work out for you there? Everything was
it was great. Yeah, everything's fine.
Right.
Everything's where it should be.
Streaming along. Okay, but I know something very cool that happened to you this week.
What was that?
What would you do
I don't
me to
remember.
remind you?
Right,
What
I
would
can't
you
remember.
do? Tim met a very famous person crossing the George Washington Bridge. You know, that's a huge story.
No, actually, we didn't meet each other. I was just saying we just passed each other.
But that happened.
Right. But it was just, it's such a New York, it's one of those only in New York moments. Because I have a show this Saturday where it's going to be Broadway. I'm rehearsing a bunch of Broadway songs. And I was doing this medley. And I walk over the George Washington Bridge and back. That's my exercise. And while I'm doing that, I exercise or I vocalize and sing and rehearse my numbers. And I have, the tracks on my headphones. And I was just hitting like the top, the final note of Some Enchanted Evening, I think.
Oh, I love it.
And never let him go. And I'm holding this note. And this jogger comes by. And I'm like, oh, my God, that's Lin-Manuel Miranda. And he looks at me as I'm holding this note and he smiles and I smile and we just kind of nod. And that was about it. But it was just such one of those quick, only shit like that happens in New York City. You know what I mean? So, but it was
love that.
And I've lived in Washington Heights for 40 years. And he lives in Washington Heights. And that was the first time we had encountered each other in 40 years.
But that's the thing about New York. You never know when you're going to run into somebody like that at any time.
And I just happened to be holding, this Broadway note as Mr. Broadway goes running by.
If anybody has any thoughts about that, like, in the universe, what all that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it probably has some meaning to it. Well,
and you have a show this weekend too.
I've got
promote our show.
Right. We're all about promotion, but I can't promote anything till I get my earrings on.
Well, I will promote PANGEA.
Yes,
PANGEA. That's where we broadcast from every week. We are at the fabulous PANGEA, 179. Well, it's between 11th and 12th on 2nd Avenue in the East Village. Incredible food. They have supported the arts. They have a cabaret room in the back. I've performed there. She's performed there. Our guest, I think, has performed there, but I've seen him there. He's performed there.
I am performing there this week with Ike Cavelli's 50 Shades of Gay, featuring myself, Kobe Cole, and
Jackie,
the beautiful Jackie.
Normally I'm with 50 Shades, but I have another show in the Bronx.
Right.
And that their show is going to be here at PANGEA at 9:30.
We are at 9:30, and Tim would be in both places if he could. But you know what they say: you can't dance at both weddings with one tuchus. That's what they say. You never heard that one. There you go. And after, oh my God, this is the best. Everybody knows I've been celebrating my birthday since January 15th still. And the party continues on. We are having an after party here at PANGEA. That's right. So when the show's over.
How many birthday cakes?
I'm having 2 birthday cakes. I'm having a whipped cream strawberry shortcake birthday cake. And I had to order a second cake for my amazing friend Albert C. Penna, who I hope will be here. And that cake is going to be buttercream. Why, you ask, is it buttercream? Does Albert C. Penna like buttercream? We don't know, but Nick Lyon loves buttercream. So I did that special for him. So we're going to have 2 cakes. We have enough cake for everybody. If you're watching this broadcast, please come on down. The show's at 9:30. The cake will be at 11:15. And we're all going to have a grand old time, aren't we?
Now, I'm going to be in the Bronx at BAD, which is the Bronx Academy of Arts and Dance. And it's called, I believe it's called I Love More Movie, or I Love More Musicals. And it's Barbara Herr and I. Last year we did this with Michael Lynch, and Michael was not available this year, but we did it just streaming. So this year they wanted to repeat it with us live on stage with a live audience. And it will also be streaming. So you can go to badbronx.org. That's BAAD. Bronx.org.
Because you're bad. Because you're bad. And I love that you're offering it both live and streaming. Last year,
yeah, whatever you're comfortable with.
I loved Barbara Hare last year. I loved you. You at Lehman College, they performed. That was streamed, but it was really wonderful performance. And I just wish we could be at two places at once.
I do too.
Oh my God, the dilemmas of performing, ladies and gentlemen. So speaking of performing,
performing does not get much better than our guest today.
And you know
seriously.
Such an incredibly complex performer on so many levels. Today's guest is a playwright, an actor. They've written him up as a female impersonator. I don't even think that touches the surface, because he has such a grasp on how he creates and sees women like nobody else does. So I absolutely love him to death.
But he's also a novelist, a cabaret performer, and, like she said, a drag icon.
And how is all of this in one human being?
Well, let's find out.
We're going to find out. Let's welcome Charles Busch. Yay! We love Charles.
I'm exhausted hearing about me.
Oh, there's so much.
Do you ever tire of hearing about yourself?
Right.
Not really, no.
I love that. And I have to say, with every guest, I read. There was just so much on you. I actually wrote a timeline so I could figure out when you did which play and who was in what play. And honest to God, Charles, I had to give up after. I know all your big ones, but there was so much work in there. I had to give up after a while because I was getting them like all confused.
While I was setting up today, we have the table here with all of this, and she's setting up and putting out her notes on the table, and she goes, bring that table over. I had to get a second table to include all of her notes about your career. We have two tables full, a big table and a smaller table. So how are you? How are you doing, Charles?
Well,
that's an open question.
But I do tend to think about all the events of my personal life according to what play I was doing when I generally do that. But I was thinking when you were talking about that incredible story about Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Great.
I grew up in New York basically, and twice I ran into Greta Garbo.
Oh my God!
Twice.
Fabulous.
Is she really like the way they describe her, like Greta Garbo?
Not really. She, I guess it was when I was going to high school. So I think it was maybe 1969.
Wow.
I was one time it was near, up near Hunter College. I was walking around there. And then another time I was near where we lived in Murray Hill. And I was coming home from school, I think. And it was about, I think it was around 37th Street and Fifth Avenue. And I see Garbo coming towards me. And I was so into classic film as an very young child. So I recognized her, and she was still incredibly beautiful in this very kind of sort of butch Scandinavian lesbian way.
Love it.
The butch Scandinavian lesbian type.
Yeah.
I love that.
She didn't wear a big floppy hat. She had her own hair, but it was the most beautiful color. It was like when the sun hit it, it was like blonde, auburn, brown, gray, all silvery mixed together. And
that is an interesting observation to me, that at that moment that's what you took in, the variation.
The sun hit her hair, and she was in kind of it seemed like a cream colored Mao jacket and matching pants, kind of, and just sort of striding, and then I followed her. She went into an Asian novelty store called Azuma. It was like a chain.
I remember Azuma. I love that play.
And I followed her into Azuma, and nobody was in the store, and so she and it was very nerve-wracking for me because I knew that she was very sensitive to being observed and would bolt. So I had to pretend like I wasn't staring at her. And at one point we were on both sides of a table with Indian print bedspreads.
That's what they used to sell there, right?
Flipping through the spread and looking up, trying to look at her. And then our our eyes met, you know, and so I kind of took one of the bedspreads, kind of looked at her like, what do you know,
Oh.
she kind of, I read into that she was actually saying, well, they're 2 for 1. So if one has to go to the cleaners, you should get the second one, you know. So I read that into her eyebrow.
Greta Garbo, you had an eye for a bargain. That absolutely made my day. I would have never figured that.
I was sure that's what she was indicating by that kind of.
Absolutely.
But, let me
2
see
for 1, you get one, you know, extra one.
Yeah.
You know,
So now,
yeah.
Charles, you were, you know, early. I think so much about your early childhood really interested me because you lost your mom at a very young age, 7 years old, and as you know, we're close in age. As a kid, and I'm sure for you too, I used to have these nightmares about what will happen if I lose my mother. It's way different when you're a little kid than when you're older and you have coping skills. So there you were in 7 years of age. Were you this creative kid then? What was Charles like at 7?
Or how did you
process
yeah, how did you cope with that?
Yeah.
Well, I was a very creative kid. You know, I'm kind of like, basically I was totally me at 3. You know, I just,
wow.
Yeah. And in a way, it's funny. I hadn't really thought about this until you mentioned it just now. It's just that I think maybe because I spent so much time in my own imagination and drawing and even writing a bit, I guess, or just lost in my own, you know, just fantasy world.
Your
And
own
I
world.
think in a way, maybe that was helpful in dealing with such terrible loss. I was kind of, what's the word, self-possessed. I mean, I just, yeah.
You were into your own head and your own thing. And in a way, that's a wonderful thing to have because you can
during such trauma.
Yeah, you can take that creative energy and really channel it.
And I think also I feel like at a very early age, I became so divided into being able to be both in any situation, and it's true to this day. I'm both participant and observer at the same time. You know, yeah. I mean, when anything awful happens to me, or even wonderful happens to me, I'm always kind of immediately kind of assessing the situation and what's going to happen. And you know, it's troubling at times. I sometimes feel like I lack the ability of being genuinely exhilarated by good news. You know, when I have a play open, and on the occasions when we've gotten just a rave review and it's so thrilling and everybody's jumping up and down and all that, I'm thrilled and everything, but I'm kind of thinking, oh, well, what does this really mean? Will this really help the box office? And oh boy, I'm gonna have to really step it up, because I'm gonna have to do this 8 times a week and have the energy.
Wow.
Right.
So I'm already thinking about that, you know, and I wish I wasn't that way. I wish I wasn't.
Yeah, it's difficult for you to be in the present of exhilaration, or I can.
But I feel like I was that way though, so young. I think even with my mother's death, in a way, I think already I was like, so what happens to us now? You know, that kind of feeling.
So you're this creative kid. You're growing up in Ardsley, Westchester, which I told you my cousins were all there, and my family's buried in Ferncliff. It's a very pretty very suburban place. You were definitely out of the box at a very young age. So what were you experiencing that time in terms of school? I mean, did teachers get you? Did your other classmates get you?
I don't think any, in my entire academic career from kindergarten to through college, I'd say there were maybe 3 teachers who thought I had something to offer.
Wow.
Yeah, I sound bitter. I am.
No, you know what? There is a point here. I totally can connect to that. And I'm sure Tim can too. And the people I know now that are such successful, creative people, they definitely didn't fit. All right. They were never the teacher's pets.
Not a lot of support.
Not a lot of support. Nobody knew what my mother, we didn't know what to do with you. Like they had some alien child, you know, we didn't know what to do with you. But I love having this conversation with you because you are so successful in the genres that you want to be successful in. You understand? And that thing that you said about being both in the thing and then observing the thing, you're an actor, but you're also a playwright. That is,
and producer.
And producer.
That's really telling. That's really telling because I
Right.
mean, I think if I was only an actor, I think maybe I would be more in the moment. But as a writer, I'm creating the world around me. Yeah, and I think in a way, it's interesting. Because one of the things I love about being an actor playwright, and there aren't that many of us around.
No,
it's just that it's so wonderful to have this experience of creating this world, and for that 2 hours, everyone is behaving exactly as you wish. It doesn't happen in real life. People have their own mind. So I'm controlling kind of the world that I'm in the center of, and I prefer that. I've also I've written plays that I'm not in, but I like it better when I'm in the middle of it. And it's
because that is, I never thought of it that way, but you control the emotions,
right?
You control the happenings,
or the narrative. I'm controlling it all. Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling.
It is the perfect fantasy world, where you are the star. You can do it all. So,
it really is, and everybody's behaving very well.
But now, when it came to support, now when did you move into your Aunt Lilith's?
Aunt Lillian
Aunt Lillian, I'm sorry. Yes,
I like Lilith though. That's very
I
classic.
do. I love that you came story in the universe.
Maybe I should make her Aunt Lilith.
Lilith.
Well, I was always, thing is, my mother was quite fragile, and she died at the age of 41, and I think and my aunt was her oldest sister, and she was, Aunt Lillian, I think, was about 13 years older than my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So she was always trying to make life easier for my mother, and so I'm the youngest I have two older sisters, and so I think from a very early age, I was spending so many weekends in New York City with my aunt, just to kind of make things easier. And then my aunt and I had just this incredible connection. And I think it was this mutual fascination. It was kind of like if Auntie Mame and Patrick, if young Patrick was just as flamboyant as Auntie Mame. I mean, we were kind of two Auntie Mames together, so we found each other fascinating.
That's what I mean, and having her to kind of nurture that part of you.
Yeah, so I think it's funny. It's easy for me in the past to think, it be sort of one-sided, but how fortunate I was to have this lady who found me so intriguing. But on the other side of it, I'm thinking it must have been how wonderful it must have been for her to have this little boy who saw things in such an original way, and I think she was so taken with my creativity, and basically anything I did was genius, and
in a way her protege,
right? And her protege. It's interesting how she engineered you at the time, because what was fascinating to me, school wasn't going great for you, and they wanted you to repeat the grade, which is, I'm a mom. That is devastating for a kid. That is like, not only was the kid ostracized in the year they were supposed to be at, now it's going to be double. You get left back. And there was Aunt Lil. She jumped in, she tutored you, and she made sure that you passed everything, no matter how. It was hard for you to do that.
Yeah, no, I really wasn't scholastic. I could focus. I had incredible concentration on the things that interested me.
Right.
Reading about theater history or whatever. But actual school work didn't really interest me. And I wasn't, I guess, as a gay kid, I mean, there was a certain amount of bullying a bit, but not like some of the other kids. I think there was something a bit aloof about me. And I think you're bullied even more, I think, if bullies sense in you a need to be included, a need to be part of things. And I was a bit of a cool customer, and so I don't know. Maybe does it make sense, or maybe I'm just
absolutely.
Oh, we all know cool and aloof works. It's certainly been.
I didn't really care. I found them all rather dreary, so I never particularly wanted to be a part of the group, and then I was always spending every weekend from a very young age in New York City, and my aunt was sending me to, before I ever moved in with her, she was sending me to acting class on Saturdays in New York City. And so my friends, my friends really were my New York friends on the weekends. That's who those are my great friends, and including Andy Halliday, who I'm still friends with, who's in some of my plays. We met at theater camp when we were 14.
I love
14. But that's who my friends were. So I was always kind of protected that way. I wasn't this person who was at the mercy of this suburban school. But then but I was doing so bad, as you said, I was doing so badly. And then when my aunt learned that I was going to be left back, she really stepped in, and I moved in with her ostensibly just for that summer, going before 9th grade, to see if I could go to pass classes in summer school. And then I was so kind of freaked out that she had to figure out a way of me to stay in New York City and not have to go back to Westchester. And somehow I got into the High School of Music and Art as an art major because I draw well. And
by the way, I applied the same year you did. I didn't get in. All these years, I have to tell you that I didn't get in.
Were you as in music? Was that you were singing?
I did art, and this is so awful. I was so I was a kid from the Bronx and so not together. I went and traced drawings from books. I know, I'm horrifying everybody. I did.
Honey, you do what you gotta do
because
to get
you know
by.
what? I didn't really have a portfolio. And
Right.
and of course I didn't get in. I did get into art and design. My mother didn't want me riding the train there. And I ended up in Walton High School across the street from where I grew up, which was absolutely horrible life school. I think my school, maybe 15 kids went on to college. Can you imagine? I know. Charles is laughing. That's funny. I made it funny. But the music and art, did you start to thrive when you got in there?
Imagine.
Yeah,
it was just good for me to, music and art in 1968 was just, the hippie school of all time, and I remember one time, my aunt just was so fascinated. Every day she'd, I'd get home from school and she'd say, well, what happened today? And I'd say, oh, well, today was it was fuck school day. And so it just, it was like very, bohemian hippie school. And, there was no gym class. I mean, it was heaven. Yeah. It's so different from the suburban school that I'd gone to. That was
exactly.
More conservative.
And again, going from that environment to just total creative support and encouragement, that would be amazing.
And all kids.
I was also a bit freaked out too, though. I'd never really been on the subway alone, and music and art was in kind of a scary neighborhood.
Up by City College, where.
College, yeah. And then we were warned, don't go down this street.
Right.
Don't go. So I mean, there was a lot to adjust to, but ultimately it was just fantastic. And but then I also, every Saturday I was in this acting class. My aunt had sent me to this, she was always sending me to rather esoteric summer camps that catered to the imaginative
child
boy with recherche tastes. And so I went a couple summers to. I think I sort of imagined that, and basically I think she would tell me that she'd be doing volunteer work somewhere, or taking a French class or whatever, and talk to some other woman who also had a sensitive little boy with special tastes and sophistication, and where are you sending your boy to camp? Oh, well, so they would all talk about where their boys would go. So like I went to this one summer camp in North Carolina that was all designed on Grecian themes.
Oh, get out!
I mean, it was fabulous. I went there a couple summers. Then there was a series of showbiz camps, and finally the one I went to was called Beginner Showcase in New Hampshire, and that's where I met Andy and the very flamboyant Cuban director of the camp, artistic director, taught acting classes in the city during the winter. That's a whole group of us from that summer camp who lived in the New York, the tri-state area. We would take classes, and I did that for several years, and that's really where my social life was with
absolutely. And the thing that I love, now this is kind of fast forwarding a little bit, but in so many of your shows, like you were mentioning Andy, that you still will have Andy perform with you, and you're very loyal, very loyal to your friends. Like a lot of times you have the same actor, they're the same people involved in the projects as you go along, and I just love that. I think that's so cool.
Tim is very much, we both are, but Tim always covers the people that he loves and works with, and in this industry it's really important to do that, but you also learn trust with your actors.
I don't know, I don't really think of it as loyalty as much as just they're all very good,
right.
And I just really love writing roles for very interesting, quirky, but very talented people.
Right.
And I just think it's really important to surround yourself with talented people.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes it's a problem with, when young people today ask me, Wendy and Tim, when they ask me, just for advice or something, and they think it's all about, you have to know somebody famous to make it. And I said, well, I think it's also important really to cultivate talented people, your peers, and who are struggling like you are, but just hook on to the talented people. Yeah. So, yeah. And so like, and sometimes you don't really know, like Julie Halston,
I love Julie Halston. They said
when I first met Julie, though, she was terrible. She'll tell you she was terrible. She was working on Wall Street as a corporate librarian for a very fancy investment firm, and just with vague notions of being a performance artist, as she'd say. And but then we were doing. I was going to be doing this little skit in the East Village that I called Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, and no woman I knew would do this with me, in this bar on Avenue C. And the last on my list was that blonde girl that I met once who works on Wall Street, and I was kind of hoping she'd say no, and she said yes. But then it turned out that she just had such a wonderful big personality that that I started changing the lines around to suit her and to put in actually just phrases that she would use in life. And and then she got the confidence to to be herself, and then then became this very skilled actress. But back to me.
Enough about Julie.
She's doing fine. No, we don't have to talk about her.
Right.
Yes,
but I like working. I really love writing for specific people.
Well, that was what I was that was the next question that I had, was because when you're writing, you have specific people in mind, like, oh my God, I could see them saying this or doing this. And
it's fun. With really, particularly in the past 10 years or more. It's really always been that case. Is I actually I figure out what part do I want to play, and is it a movie genre? Is it like, oh, I want to be Barbara Stanwyck in a mother love melodrama or something, and then I write a list of people that I adore hanging out with who are very talented, and I then thought, okay, well, how do I fit Jennifer into this story? Well, she could be,
Yeah.
and what about, Christopher? Oh, he could be so and so. And so then, and I kind of evolved the narrative around
Wow.
The characters.
the
Yeah.
characters. And
I love that.
yeah, and so it's fun. There are no problems, no backstage drama.
Yeah.
Right from the start, I adore them all. Yeah.
Right, but you have to really have a way of being able to see into people that lets you know it's going to work with them. Like Julie Halston was not a typical background, right? She's working as a librarian. That's not somebody that's going to pop out as someone that can carry a show. And yet you saw something there. You had to have seen something.
Well, she had a big personality. Everybody, the people that I've written for, for the most, either their own persona is so, set that it's kind of like, well, Julie, okay, she could be sort of an Eve Arden, John Blondell sidekick, or they're just like Jennifer Van Dyke, who I've worked with a lot, is just such a highly skilled actress, classical actress, that she could do it. But even there, it's like in the last few years, I always had men in drag, play female characters in my plays, but really had never done the reverse and had women play male parts. But then since I've been working with Jennifer, who has a kind of a Katharine Hepburn quality to her, that I started writing roles where she could play their trouser roles, as they used to call them.
Yeah. The woman who wears the pants.
Yes, and and at one point, I think the first one I wrote for her was first male role was in a little play we did at Theater for the New City. I think it was a biblical epic, Judith of Bethulia, and she was the young poet, adventurer, and she wasn't quite sure how I saw it, and I think the instinct was sort of play it kind of butch, and I said, no, it's I want you to just imagine you're a great stage actress of the 20s who's playing Romeo, but she's still a great actress that we see, so you don't have to really be convincingly a guy. It's a romantic version of a woman playing the young poet. And so I've written a lot of those parts for her, and it's kind of fun. I'm really enjoying, the other side of having women play male roles.
Well, now, backing up, you mentioned Vampire Lesbians of Sodom. Let's go back, because that was kind of the beginning, or when you really stepped onto the scene.
That was the big break, right?
Right.
After many years, I really paid my dues. I spent about 10 years in vaudeville, and basically from when I graduated Northwestern in '76, and then my big break was in '85. So that's like nine years. Yeah. And I just knew that I was such an odd type, and there was no Torch Song Trilogy or
Waiting for You,
or Angel in America, or any of these plays that had were so groundbreaking and had roles for an androgynous young man, but none of those had been written yet. And I thought that I'm not there's not going to be any career for me if I'm just trying to be a journeyman actor. And then when I saw people like Charles Ludlam and writer performers, I thought, well, since I always wrote, why not just write a role for myself? And that is all the things that make me unemployable will be an asset.
You worked with Charles Ludlam, right?
Just a bit, just a little bit.
What was that like?
Well, I was a great fan of his. I saw him at a very young age. I thought he was just fascinating, and he was just brilliant. And I didn't really. My fantasy wasn't really to work with him or even to be friends with him. I really just wanted him to think I was talented. That basically was it. Yeah. And when I came back to New York in '78, because after I graduated, I spent 2 years in Chicago trying to figure out how am I going to be a a drag playwright. I mean, it's like it doesn't the obvious thing of step 1, step 2, step 3. But so it took me a while. But then I became a solo performer. I started because I thought, well, I don't know anybody, and to get a play put on is very difficult.
Yeah.
But if I do a solo show, I can perform at the duplex or something. So I started out that way, just not in drag, but just creating these solo plays where I played all the characters, male and female, in a narrative, and do the dialogue back and forth in some cases. And I was also influenced by a wonderful, brilliant performer named Jeff Weiss, who was a great downtown artist, a solo performer. Anyway, I was able to get Charles Ludlam to see me to do my act one night at the duplex, I guess. Or yeah, it might have been the duplex, or maybe it was, oh no, I think it was actually a place called Scene 1 on Hudson Street. Anyway, he had his own theater on Sheridan Square, and he was very generous and said I should do my shows, midnight shows, on weekends at his theater after his performance. And so I did that for a few weeks. I was totally unknown. Nobody really showed up. Why would they?
At midnight.
I wasn't reviewed or anything, but it was just nice to be in the same place for a couple of weeks.
And then the recognition.
One question I have is when did the gender bending, the drag, when did that appear in your life?
Well, in stages, because first, when I was in Chicago, right after graduation, I started writing movie pastiche pieces that I performed in. There was a new wave sort of club called La Mer Vipère in Chicago, and I was able to get them to let me, do some shows there at 7:00 before the guests came in.
It beats midnight.
Yeah. So I started a little theater company in Chicago, and that with just kind of all the wrong people. But it was the mirror opposite of what ended up being my experience later on. But I started this little theater group, and I wrote a play for us that was a homage of women's pictures from the 30s called Myrtle Pope, the story of a woman possessed. And I played Myrtle Pope.
I love that.
Yeah. And so we booked this little play. It was short. It was like, under an hour. It just all these different bars and clubs and straight, gay. And then there was a local movie theater, and I persuaded the owner of that theater to let us do our show after the last screening of the movie. I mean, I really tried every which way.
Love that. That's being creative.
So I was, playing drag then, but then when I became a solo performer, it seemed best, since I was playing so many characters, talking back and forth, that not to use any costumes or props at all, and just have. It was you had to really be careful, because you never wanted the audience to be confused. And I learned so much about exposition as a writer, all these things, just so that there never could be a second that an audience was thinking, oh, who is he now? Or
right.
So you had to, and you didn't want to be hokey about it, but you had to be within seconds. The audience had to know who I am, where I am, in relationship to who I'm speaking to.
Right.
So that was very.
How did you? Brilliant. It's brilliant. And even as you're speaking, because now we're getting into left brain, right brain. How did you do that? I guess, for lack of a better word, how did you keep that all straight in your head? That line of demarcation between the characters when there was one person playing them, which it was you.
Well, at Northwestern, there was a separate department aside from theater that was actually very respected. It was called the Department of Interpretation, and it was very much about performing prose fiction, and there were certain techniques that you learned about that each character. If you have multiple characters in a scene, that each character should have a focus in a certain direction. So
Right.
if I'm, you know, the countess, she's talking here. If I'm the young peasant girl, she's talking here. If I'm the old fisherman, he's talking here. So that does help the audience right away when you're.
So it's as if you're using the space. Okay, you're breaking it into 3 different quadrants, and you have a focus in each one.
Yeah.
Use that as your line.
Then when I started doing it myself in a theater space, my directors, because I always worked with the director, we would figure out just different ways of elaborating on that, where I would, you know, I'd be talking as one character, and then I'd spin around and then it would be almost like a movie cut,
right?
And I'd be someone else, and it was really, you know, interesting thing, and it's kind of a pity in a certain sense that my career took off in drag, playing one character just when I really was kind of going in an interesting direction with the solo work. And it was also, you know, sometimes it got a little frustrating that my solo material, because after 9 years evolving this, you know, I was getting into rather personal material and different kind of character, different styles and all that. And it was getting really quite rich. And then when I started Theater in Limbo and was doing all these movie pastiche plays, and people would say to me, like, particularly like the plays after Vampire Lesbians, Psycho Beach Party or Lady in Question or whatever, people would say, you've grown so much since Vampire Lesbians. And I thought, I was more complicated before Vampire Lesbians. Nobody just ever saw it. But you know, were personal, and, you know, taking stuff from my own life, and, you know, so it was it's just that if you're going to do a play on Avenue C in a bar, you not get too complicated. You know, a simple entertainment.
Right.
So that used to kind of just frustrate me a bit. But then I was doing drag in Chicago, and then things didn't work out with that little theater group. They thought that I was holding them back. That's how I was. Well, you know, I mean, I sort of saw their point. The fact was that I like being the star. It was my idea to have this theater company, and I was good. The idea was that I was going to be the female lead in these plays that I wrote, and they all seemed to like the idea until I was the only one getting a laugh.
No, I mean, thank you for
go over well.
Thank you for putting that out there. It was your idea. You started it. You had every right, of course, to be the.
And you're writing. You're creating.
Yeah, these parts of them all, but it was interesting in that case. We were not of the same mind, and they really a lot of them really resented me, and then it all kind of came out, and at kind of an encounter group where everybody had to talk about how they felt about each other, and it was clear they all adored each other, and all of them found me impossible. And then I thought, well, okay, it's time for me to move back to New York.
Too many chefs in the kitchen.
Right, but you know, Charles, would make a brilliant play. While you're talking about it, we've all been in similar positions.
Oh yeah.
When the herd turns on you.
Oh, it's terrible. When you're kicked out of your own group.
Nothing
worse. It's terrible when you're kicked out of your own group. I'm still not really over it, to be honest with you.
No, but it's important to talk about these things because it happens. And it's about navigating your way past that, okay, and rising up from it.
Well, yes, because some people are destroyed by it. Some people think like, oh, well, I feel betrayed. I feel this or that.
And will withdraw or even leave the profession.
No, I was very defiant. I was Scarlett O'Hara. God is my witness. As God is my witness, I am going to pursue this career, and I will not be put down by non-union actresses who final bow.
They're not gonna. They're not going to tell me what to do. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
That's great. Well, you're watching
Yes.
If
Oh,
These Walls Could
I
Talk.
forgot what show we were on.
Well, we're just talking. I love this. But you're watching If These Walls Could Talk with your hosts, Wendy Stuart and Tym Moss, and our amazing and incredibly talented guest, the one and only Charles Busch.
Yay! And entertaining. I'm living for these stories.
There are so many things that I would like to get into with you that still, and I know we're not going to be able to cover them all, but
Are you giving me the HEFO now? Is this it? You kick him in the ass and get out?
No. We've still got some time.
We've got time. We've got great comments.
But yeah, we've got some comments coming in. Teresa Saban says, I love New York and love your earrings. Ikevelli says, oh my God, Nick Lyon. And I love buttercream. They were talking about the cake. Just one second. Richard Skipper says, happy Wednesday, everyone.
Oh, hey, Richard.
Hey, Richard.
Timothy Moreland says, love it. Mindy Fradkin says, I can relate to, you are not alone. Yes, my family didn't understand me. And
Apollonia.
Apple Cabrera. Apple Cabrera.
I can't see
down here.
God forbid I should put glasses on. Oh my God.
Charles having. Mindy also says, yes, I agree, Charles, having talented people around you always.
Right.
Apollo Cabrera says, I enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Apollo. Nick Lyon. Hi, everyone. Great show. Great talent. Super fan. I know Nick has seen, I was talking with him on the phone. He's gone to so many of your shows. Truly an icon. Looking forward to the future. Love it.
Yes, absolutely.
Margot Channing. Hi, Margot.
Friends. Yeah.
Marty Al Butcher says, I have seen Charles in almost everything he's done.
Marty's an amazing hairdresser and a true supporter of theater. So, and Dawn Hinton. Hi, Dawn. Thank you.
Yes.
Great show.
Now, okay, so Vampire Lesbians of Sodom, The Lady in Question, The Divine Sister, The Confession of Lily Dare, and of course, The Tale of the Allergist's Wife, which got you a Tony nomination. I mean, and you still weren't jumping up and down when you got a Tony nomination.
No, I was pretty excited about that.
Good. I'm glad you appreciate
it. Tony to get you excited.
Yes, and that whole experience, I tell you, because I never really, it was not, one thing, I'm coming off really a little pathetic here, but I just don't, I'd probably be more successful if I had the big dream, but I always kind of went from thing to thing, like, oh, my goal is to do my act in San Francisco, and then after that, my goal is to, so I never really thought like, oh, my goal is to have a sitcom or my goals from the Oscar. So I never thought about, oh, the goal is to get a play on Broadway. I'd had this very, very satisfying commercial career as a actor playwright off Broadway, and I was doing fine. I earned my living, but then it just circumstances happened that did this. I wrote the book to a musical that was produced by Manhattan Theater Club. I hit it off with Lynn Meadow, their artistic director. She encouraged me to write a play for her for Manhattan Theater Club. I wrote Allergist's Wife, and then was very well received at Manhattan Theater Club, and then plans were made to move it to the Barrymore Theater on Broadway. So it just these things. It wasn't like this is
that wasn't the intent. Yeah,
that was the goal. But when it happened, it was. I mean, really, it's the most thrilling thing. I mean, to have a Broadway,
but it's the thing that, as I told you, I looked at your timeline of work. You had already done a show when you were at Northwestern, when you were a student. What was the name of that show?
Sister Act.
Sister Act came out
decades before the nun movie, but it was not about nuns. It was about a traveling freak show, but that was my first. That was my first real play that we actually staged, and it was Northwestern had a very fine theater department before I got there, and a very fine theater department after I left. When I was there, it was in a transitional period. Transitional, and so they had no playwriting program, and they had nothing, in place to produce an original play. Now, I mean, after I left, it's really a fantastic program, but during those 4 years, it was in transition. So anyway, so I wrote this little 1-act play for my roommate Ed Taussig and I to do. That was kind of in the Ludlam mode, and we weren't being very ambitious. We thought we'd just do it on a Sunday afternoon in the dorm in the lounge, And I had a friend, a wonderful, this fellow Scott Blakeman, who's gone on to be a successful comic. He was running a series in the big student union auditorium called Midnight Madness, where they would show Warhol films or John Waters movies. Actually, it might have been before I guess it was before John Waters.
Probably.
But anyway, like Warhol films, cult stuff. And anyway, they lost the rights to their movie for the weekend. And so Scott said, why don't you do your play? And
we got a show for you.
We'll give you the $250 rental fee, and you can be actually in the student auditorium.
Oh, great.
So we had this $250. We had wigs, and and we did the play, and then it was kind of funny. It was just that some journalism student interviewed Ed and I, and he didn't seem to be asking any questions. So I just kept throwing him all this information, trying to make the show sound good. And then the day of the show, on the front page of the Daily Northwestern, was a big photo of Ed and I in drag. And the headline was "Degeneracy Reigns at Midnight Madness." And it was added, thank
you.
But I thought, what's are all these like jocks gonna come in and boo and I don't disrupt the thing? It sounds so lurid. And we were so packed, sold out.
Love it.
But as soon as the curtain opened, and there Ed and I were in drag, and we were playing Siamese twins, so we were strapped together. There's huge, but you could tell immediately if it was derisive or supportive, and it was really a magical experience. I'd never performed in drag. I mean, I wasn't very good, and I wasn't very good before, in trying. One of the reasons I guess I never got a part in a school play was I think I was trying to imitate what a normal person would act like, like I was an alien trying to act like a human, and I was just kind of stiff and self-conscious, and suddenly playing a female character unleashed in me a confidence and an authority that I never had before. And in a way, I really do think, I'm glad there are no videos back then, because I wouldn't like to see it, but it seems to me, and from what the feedback I got, that the basic me that I've been ever since on stage was sort of there, and I knew at that moment, really, I thought, this is who I am.
Right.
This is what I must be.
And what you are and what you have become. Like, I want to move on also to the films. Oh my God, Die Mommie Die.
Oh, Die Mommie Die.
Oh my God. Yeah. I remember when I watched that. Well, you did Die Mommie Die and Psycho Beach Party. Yeah. Love it. There's always a madness element. Somebody goes nuts, which I love. Yep. And I want to know where that comes from.
Yeah.
But Die Mommie Die, when I first saw that, I had heard nothing about it. I knew nothing about it. That was my favorite movie of the year when I saw it.
I'm very proud of it.
Loved it.
And it was kind of a lost film for a while, because it's never been available for streaming, and I think the only copies you can buy of the DVD are on eBay or something. But anyway, so there was a whole problem for years of trying to figure out who actually owned the movie, and the distribution arm doesn't exist anymore. So it was very frustrating, but it's all been solved. And so
great.
The movie's going to be restored and released by Wolf Video.
Excellent. Well, you also had Jason Priestley as I love it.
Natasha Lyonne,
love interest.
My daughter.
Yes, and your Angela Arden is just one of my all-time screen favorites. And you actually you won Best Performance Award at the Sundance Film Festival for that.
Yeah.
My God, Sundance.
That was amazing. I think it's the only acting award I've actually won. And I wasn't there. I was doing a play.
Of course not.
I
Of
was doing a
course
play
you
on
weren't there.
Broadway called Shanghai Moon, and I was able to go. They sprung me for a couple days from the play to go to Utah to attend the festival, and I was there for a couple days. But then, the award thing show was the very last day of the festival.
Right.
I had to go back, and so I'd done the show, and I didn't even know. Honestly, I didn't really know they gave acting, because they don't really give acting awards. It was a special jury award. They don't. It's not like every year they do best actor, best actress, and so I did the show. I came home from the theater, and there was, I was listening to my messages, and I heard this like what? and then they called, and the producers called and said, you won't believe it, you won. I said, what did I win? They said, you won a special jury award for your performance. I was really just, I'm getting kind of, emotional talking about it. I couldn't.
Were you able to wrap your head around it? So were you able to taste it and smell it and live for it?
Yeah, I did. I was really. I shared the award with Patricia Clarkson, who had.
I know Patty Clarkson.
She had a big year that year. She starred in like 4 big indie films that year.
Yeah, and, she's great.
Yeah, no, I was thrilled, and yeah. And I guess, I had a little bit of a chip in my shoulder before that, because I'm in drag, nobody really thinks of me as an actor, like bullshit. And somehow having that validation meant a lot to me, and that it was given to me. The head of the jury that year was Tilda Swinton and Steve Buscemi.
Wow.
Who I really respect as actors, and
to
have them, give me this award. I mean, wow. I mean,
well, very well deserved.
Absolutely.
It's one of my favorite things I've ever done. I loved making that movie. I loved every second of it.
I was just going to say that, because it looked like every frame of that you were just having a ball.
Yes, actually, that's a case where I have to say it goes against my usual sour pickle demeanor. I every second of every day making that movie, I just was almost hyperventilating with joy.
Charles, hearing everything that you've done, and my God, what a body of work. What about a Charles Busch retrospective? Like a festival where I'm sitting here thinking, because you know what? It's a decade here, a decade there. Let's take and put it all together. It's so many people love you. Everyone who knew you were coming on the show today. What about doing a retrospective like that?
Well, I've only made a couple movies, so it'd be a short retrospective.
It's like everything. It's who you are, and then the talking in between, and all of that. You are such a creative.
Maybe even a few readings.
Yeah, readings and all. This is going through my head right now.
I'm in.
It's a really great idea.
Because you are a New York City,
right?
Again, I know this word is thrown around a lot, but legendary.
Yeah.
In this field, and you deserve that. You really deserve to be celebrated, and recognized for your body of work.
Okay, well, I have to say, I do have a Dramatist award for my, for my contribution to the American theater. I have received some acknowledgement, but that would be but I've got a lot of things coming up. I've finally finished my my memoirs.
Yes, I was going to ask about that.
We're in the middle of finding the right publisher for that, and I have this new movie that we made during the pandemic called The Sixth Reel, that I co-wrote and co-directed with my longtime colleague Carl Allergist, and that I act in with Julie Halston, and in this incredible cast of almost everybody in the movie is either won a Tony or been nominated for a Tony, and they all were available because of the pandemic. They were all on Broadway shows and they were free. So
it's a beautiful thing. That's how this show started.
That's taking lemonade.
I exploit a pandemic when I can.
No, I know we feel the same.
Yeah, and so that's going to be released in it's been on the festival circuit, but now it's going to be released, I think, in June commercially.
Oh, great.
I'm really excited
Have
about
to
that.
keep us posted on that too. You
Now,
know?
once again, you're watching If These Walls Could Talk with your hosts, Wendy Stuart and Tim Moss, and our amazing guest, Charles Busch.
Oh, we're having so much fun
Now-
today.
I'm having a ball. I'm having really fun.
I still got a few things.
We got more questions.
Few things I want to touch on real quick.
I'm really having fun today.
Television and film. The documentary, The Lady in Question is Charles Busch.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, do you remember there was a wonderful, it went on for like 20 years, a PBS gay LGBT magazine show called In the Life. You know,
Mhm.
it was on
Yes,
PBS
yes.
I know the name. I never
Uh-huh.
saw it.
It was a wonderful show. It was really, like, I think, 20 years. And the two of the producers of that, John Catania and Charles Ignacio, became friends of mine, and they I had done a number of things for In the Life. You know, I'd hosted an episode and done different things, and they really wanted to branch out and do a full-length documentary feature about someone, and they thought I'd be a good person. So it went on for, oh my God, for about 4 years. These guys were trailing me, and you know, it was thrilling and really obnoxious at the same time.
At the same time.
You know, it's like, and during that time I had open heart surgery, and they wanted to be in the room. I said, no, no. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, they were just.
But it's art. It's art.
All the,
Really.
you take a shower and you open the thing. Oh my God! Get out of here! You know.
Look at the stars.
That's quite intrusive. Yes, quite intrusive.
Now you get a colonoscopy and you look behind you.
Oh,
Get out of here! No. It was terrible, but
Now that's a close-up. Yeah.
but you cannot be here.
Right.
A line must be drawn.
Somehow,
now-
some way. Yes.
Now the last time, well, actually, the last
They
time I
did a good, but I just finished. They did a great job, and it came out, and it premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, and it's still available. You know, yeah. So it was a great. These guys did a great thing for me. It was just a wonderful thing having a documentary about you.
and you also at Turner
Ultimately.
and Turner Classic Movies, you got to do a segment for the 1930s.
Well, I've been guest programmer a couple times.
Yes, that's what I mean. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And who better?
Yeah,
Oh
you
my
have
gosh.
such an affinity. Even your women and your plays. What did they say? That it's a duality of elegance and vulgarity. Okay.
Well, I always loved. I love ladies in movies where it's the the tough tootsie who's now elevated and and she's or the great lady who drops the mask and is
and somebody who isn't afraid to bitch slap somebody.
Right.
If they need it.
I think almost Carl Andrus, my director, always laughs at invariably in my movies, my plays. There's a certain moment where Lady Sylvia or Gertrude Garnet or the various ladies I play sit down and have to let me tell you a little story.
Yeah.
Revealing that they've been a carny dancer or not who they seem to be, or the great concert pianist. She's actually had been a honky-tonk pianist, and in vaudeville. I seem to always be the self-made woman. Yeah,
the self-made tootsie.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, also the last time that I interviewed you, I went to your home, your incredible home, which
it was on TV.
Yes, that's just what I was going to say. On Home Tours, the most beautiful homes in New York City, you were featured, and you have got just such an amazing, glorious home.
I know. I wish I could show you a little bit here. Maybe I can. I hope you don't throw up from nausea here. Oh
my God, we're getting a home tour.
I love this.
We've never done this on this show before. Oh, look at that. What is that in the background?
My sitting room.
Yes, with the sofa here and the.
And there's portrait on the wall that a wonderful painter Don Bacardi did of me in my first.
Oh yeah, there's the paint. Oh, good. Wow.
And yes, it's a duplex. You have upstairs and downstairs. It's absolutely
I love the
gorgeous.
lamp. Hold on. Let's go back to the lamp. That is super pretty. That lamp over
Above your
there.
head.
Yeah, the one right above your head behind you.
There we go.
Moving around a little bit here. So I have lovely windows overlooking Abingdon Square and
yes, down in the village,
in the Bohemian Quarter. Yeah. Anyway, so.
But yes, I mean, how was that having your home featured in on television?
Apartment therapy. It's called apartment therapy.
Yeah, apartment.
Well, what was interesting was just that they had first done a photo layout of the joint a few months ago, and they got such a great response from that. Then they asked me if they could come and do a virtual tour.
Fabulous, right?
And I was a little worried that it would seem like, I don't know if you remember in the 70s when Mary Pickford was given her honorary Oscar and the cameras came into Pickfair, and then and there she was, kind of all, thank you. Oh no, is that what's gonna be like with me? But, it's a nice piece, except that the night when it came out, and I posted about it on Facebook and everything. That night I had this horrible nightmare that I was robbed.
Oh my God!
Wow.
But I have my dreams are so simplistic that really, like, a 10-year-old child could totally interpret, because my dreams are always basically whatever happened to me during that day or whatever I've watched on television before I turn.
They're in your subconscious at night.
You felt like an invasion of your home,
right?
Oh, like I remember when I was in therapy. My shrink, he loved dream analysis, and so one day I said, well, I had this wild dream last night, that there was this really handsome cop, and he was sort of coming on to me, and the therapist got all wet-lipped, and he went up to get his big book on Freudian symbols, and while he was getting the book off the shelf, I thought, oh no. Just before I went to sleep, I was watching that rerun of The Nanny where she was hit on by the good-looking cop.
Oh my God! And you became the nanny in the.
I didn't want to disappoint my shrink by telling him.
He was so excited.
I kept that to myself. He was so excited,
What did it mean?
Yeah, really. I wanted to ask. So, what did he say it meant with the cop? And
he came up with something really good, but I just didn't have the heart to disappoint him.
Yeah, right. You didn't want to burst his bubble.
Oh God, I love it. Well, again,
in some ways, I'm very simple.
I would say you're anything but simple,
anything
darling.
but simple.
I'm a very direct kind of person. I'm not. I'm not mercurial or. Yeah, no, it's funny. I'm a really pretty direct kind of person who sort of just, I sit down every morning and write for 6 hours and
right for a mere 6 hours.
Get the work done, and I'm never late with a deadline. And I think some ways because I was such a failure in school when I couldn't keep up really, that in my professional life I can.
Right.
I've never missed a deadline ever.
Right.
If we're in rehearsal and we need a rewrite, I don't go to bed until I've done my homework, and the next morning the pages are given to the cast right there. I'm very professional, and I never cause trouble. I'm not.
No drama with you, huh? Just on the stage.
No. But I do wonder if something that is a bit of a reaction to the fact that when those years that I couldn't keep up, and that now in this when it matters, I like being, and even in projects where I'm not necessarily like in a position of power. Let's say if I was involved in it, when I've been involved in it, like a musical where I'm writing the book, I'm part of the team. I try to be the one who's the most dependable.
Right. Well, for what it's worth, I think you are just one of the most remarkable human beings. And I
Yes,
would give
I
you
would-
a very high award if I had one to give you. So you can
Thank you.
down to that.
Okay, and you've obviously proven, and the reason I started out talking about how you grew up, because that's what hit me the most about
Mhm.
you, you know, hands
Well,
down,
your
you're
evolution. yeah.
right, you're but creative genius, and how many
Mhm.
kids that are out there, and I want everybody to watch these shows, okay, because they're archived on my YouTube channel. I want kids that are struggling, because there's other Charles
Mhm.
Bushes
Yeah.
out there, and some of them do have an Auntie Lil, and how
Most
wonderful.
don't. Most don't.
Right.
Right.
We're very, very lucky to have somebody.
But they can watch this and really get not only an inspiration, but just see, you know, not everything is this great success. You fall back, you have your pitfalls, you can be
get up.
attacked, you get up, you dust yourself off, and
Mhm.
God damn it, you write 6 hours a day. Hands down, no
Yeah.
writer's block for you, no excuses, complete accountability to yourself, to your cast, and to the work you're doing. 100% Charles Busch.
Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that.
100%.
So now how?
I was very lucky that I had Anne Boleyn, who was
Yeah. Right.
100% on my side. Most
Right.
people.
Can I
most
I
people-
just have to tell Tim this. You know what she said? You can always tell a lot about somebody by the way they line their lips.
No. She said,
I live for that. That's
no,
the
she said
quote.
another line. No, the thing was, she said one of her sort of axioms. No, is you can tell everything. You can tell everything you need to know about a woman by how she puts on her lipstick.
That was it. Oh my God.
It's very true.
But you know what? That is 100% true.
And
Yeah,
I have
because,
to,
I've seen guys. I remember, I've often shared the dressing room with. I'm usually in the girls' dressing room. It's just because that's where I got so many costumes. That's just
Right.
better. It's easier for everybody if I'm in the girls' room, and often if I'm doing a play with Julie, we just want to be together. So, but I remember, I think it was during. Maybe it was Psycho Beach Party where we had all these different actresses and they were so different. And I did actually I was observing and there's sort of Julie, come out, big mouth, and just a certain kind of joy and freedom of just, but not really detailed. Then my beautiful friend who died young, McGann Robinson, who would just be putting on this like an artist, this lip liner, the careful and filling it in, and there was a certain kind of pride and self-love in a good best sense
right.
of creating this. And just each one is different. But you could make a point psychologically of the care, the not caring, the all these different things. I thought that was pretty astute. Yeah.
Well, again, you're watching If These Walls Could Talk with your host, Wendy Stuart and Tym Moss. Our amazing guest, which we're so grateful to have spent the time with, was Charles Busch. Yay. And that's Busch. Now, tell people how they can find out more about Charles Busch.
Well, I have a wonderful website.
Yeah.
Oh my God, my website's but it's so extensive. It's like trying to find the source of the Nile. You never get to the end of it, ever. And actually, it's charlesbusch.com, and it was created by my friend Kathy Carr, who's done my wigs for my entire career as well. So she does wigs, webs, and she also sometimes is a carpenter and fixes like a broken hinge on a closet door. So she's
a wonderful one to have
totally
around.
Functional. This one,
and I have to tell you, I love following you on Facebook because you will just write these narratives sometimes, and you'll talk about your sister Margaret, or you'll talk about Aunt Lil, or something. And I feel like I know these people because you're so descriptive, and your narratives are like watching a movie, and they're just like things that you experience that happen to hit you that day, and you draw upon, and it's so wonderful.
And you can picture it because of the way he writes.
Well, it's been very helpful because I've been working for years on this this memoir, and these Facebook posts have been good. That sometimes I'll try out story, and if it gets a good response, maybe I'll put that in the book. Or I'll take something I wrote that day for the book and see if this is really how this works. So it fed that way. But then also I think that for some reason, it's just part of the way my head works, that I've just always have seen almost every experience as a narrative. I can kind of turn any moment into a story.
I love
Yeah.
it.
And I don't think not everybody does that, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you turn any experience into a story with Charles Busch's perspective, and it's
Yes,
brilliant.
and I turn every other people I know, I turn their lives into
Right, your perspective as
friend,
well.
my friend Tom Judson, who's
Yes,
just my
yes.
musical director for my cabaret act. I've known him
You have your cabaret show as well.
I've
Yeah.
known him for 40 years now. Anyway, he's a very interesting fellow. But we were in the car at one point, and I said, when I talk about you, Tom, I've edited your life story down in a very interesting way, and you might want to take that my version as the truth, because he said, what is it? And I told him the story of his life.
Yeah.
And he said, well, that didn't happen that way at all. You edited out 6 years. It's better my way.
Right. I can tell your life
yeah.
better than you can.
Yes.
I to just take my version, because
Yes,
6
exactly.
years muddy up the whole
Love it.
Yeah,
poignancy of the story.
just accept this version because Charles is the star.
Right.
I wasn't even in the story. No, it's just that his life read better.
You just wrote the version.
When his lover died, that propelled him to do this.
Yeah.
Even though there actually were 6 years in between. But it was just there was more heart in my version.
It moved much better. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, please, everyone, go to charlesbusch.com, and that's BUSCH. And again, thank you so very much, Charles. Don't go anywhere. But thank you so much. We so appreciated your taking some time and sharing part of your life and your history and career.
And philosophy, perspective, and it's all good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, everybody.